Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and today we are talking about the working title Avionics update that has just hit the beta release. Stick around, it's really cool stuff. If you are interested in acquiring any of my Overkills tutorial guides or simply interested in supporting the channel, please consider joining me on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides as well as any future guides that come along down the road. Patreon link can be found in the description below, and thank you to all of my current subscribers. Okay guys, so again, this is part of the beta version. Keep that in mind, folks. But the working title team has once again absolutely shaken the world here with their avionics systems that they keep bringing to Microsoft Flight Simulator. And today I'm going to go over some of the highlights of the beta update for AAU1. So first off, we're going to start out here with the CJ4. Now, there's been quite a few changes to this aircraft. Again, I'm going to highlight the ones that I find to be the most interesting, or maybe just quality of life improvements. So first off, they added the ability to fly back course localizers, meaning that if a localizer is only set for one direction, for example, here in Tucson International, I believe that is exactly how it is for runway 11 left. You can actually set a back course and be able to fly the localizer on runway 29 right, which is obviously the reciprocal. The other really awesome thing that I found, because I actually experienced this in my testing, was they fixed an issue where the altitude knob would not accelerate for some users. Now, I did that in testing. Now, at the same token, I thought it was just me maybe doing something silly because I'm not what you would call particularly proficient with the CJ4. But they did have that. One of the other cool things they did is they improved the shorthand input formats for radio tuning on the tune page. And then they fixed an issue where the performance pages would update the values when constantly when they should not. So again, making everything act a bit more interesting, or accurate, excuse me. I was reading in the next line. Now, the other one that I found to be very interesting, and I'm kind of curious to see how this looks. I didn't realize this was actually an issue, but this isn't going to be existent in all of the updates that we're going to talk about today. Whether that be the CJ4, the G3000, TBM 930, and the Longitude, this particular fix exists. Fix an issue that caused a number of departure or arrival procedures to compute a circular loop path when it's not strictly necessary. So what that tells me is that a lot of the times when you're on the departure and you have that loop out, is that now it will actually, it sounds like, remove that loop, therefore reducing the departure or arrival time, or leg, I should say, making it more of a direct approach, which is pretty cool. I sort of thought that was just how the flight plan was laid out. I didn't realize that was actually an issue that needed to be addressed. Let's see here. The other one that caught my attention for the CJ4 is they added the traffic flag shown when TA is currently present, or traffic avoidance. Now, here's one of the cool things for the cockpit. For the cockpit, they adjusted the camera angles to better match the pilot's seating position, so you guys hopefully won't have to adjust your camera angles as much or make your custom views. It's really nice to start seeing this become more and more prevalent with many of the aircraft, that the camera angles are being adjusted. There's many where I find myself staring at the dashboard versus actually being able to see out the window. You guys have probably seen it in many of my videos where I have to lift the camera up quite a bit. And then this one is actually one that I know some of you may think is silly, but I think is something that for simulation purposes is a big one. They added the toga click spot shortcut to the fire bottle button. So if you press the fire bottle button that is right up on the glare shield, you'll actually be able to engage toga versus having to reach down to the throttle itself. So that's actually pretty cool one. That was real popular in like the PMDG 737 days, and even I believe it also existed in the ZiboMod 737, where you would click the little screw that was on the glare shield and it would actually activate toga. Now, obviously completely unrealistic, but the advantage to there is from a simulation standpoint is you don't have to move your mouse or camera angle down while you are starting your roll. You can just simply click forward and engage it if you don't have a key binding to it. And there's a lot of reasons why that may be. It could be a lack of buttons, you know, obviously that goes on and on, or just general preference. And then finally, the last one was added settings to the configs to allow ground power to be called and which will always be connected. So pretty cool stuff there. I love what they're doing with these aircraft. Now, obviously, working title, I mean, how much more can they really do with the CJ4? They turned the aircraft upside down. And then, they also improved the exterior lighting for better visibility and accuracy. So I'm assuming that that's going to be everything from landing gear, taxi light, landing light, excuse me, what I meant to say, as well as position lighting. So next, let's move on to the updates to the G3000 in general. First off, they fixed an issue where the G3000 was not correctly loading the flight plan that was created on the world map. So if you're one of those who actually likes to use the world map to lay out your IFR flight plans, there was an issue where that wasn't being imported correctly into the G3000 on the working title AAU1 previous update. That has since been resolved. There's also fixed an issue where VNAV altitudes for visual approach fixes were incorrectly calculated to be too high. So if you found yourself using the particular version and you were always real high on the glide slope, that was why. So that's also been addressed as well. Now, one of the really cool things that I like is they added the ability to adjust visual approach fix distances based on the aircraft you're flying. So obviously the aircraft you're flying is going to change the point at which you would start your approach fix and determine your actual glide slope based on speed, capabilities, weight, etc. So now you can actually, on the visual approaches, you can actually change where that initial approach fix is going to start based on your particular aircraft and configuration. Activating the go-around mode will now activate the missed approach if an missed approach is appropriate, meaning that if it is included into the current procedures. And then they fixed quite a few display issues with the GPS, as well as fixed, again, as I stated before, a number of flight path computations that was causing the flight looping that we were talking about earlier, where you'd have these big giant loops into your approach or a particular leg fix. So pretty awesome stuff for the G3000. I love the fact that they're doing both the aircraft and as well as the individual system, because the G3000 is imported into multiple aircraft across the sim. And then many third-party developers are also using that as well. So you're going to have all of these great features no longer bound to a single aircraft or a single improvement mod. And that's going to make a big difference, guys. It's going to make it a lot of fun. So now we have a couple of cool adjustments to the TBM itself. They improved the handling of electrical battery and alternator events. They fixed a bug where the EIS pressure differential gauge was stuck at 0. Fixed various cockpit indicators that were incorrectly active when there wasn't any electrical power to the aircraft. And they also fixed the triggers for the avionic fans and weather radar initialization sound effects. So you're going to have an improved sound what's the word I'm looking for? Soundscape inside the aircraft as conditions of the aircraft or the environment change. All right, so now let's talk about the big one. Now we're going to talk about the Longitude, and so many of the awesome fixes and adjustments have been made to this aircraft once again. So first off, with the flight model improvements. If you guys saw my last video when I flew the Longitude, I was talking about an issue where all of a sudden the aircraft would just start over speeding no matter what you did. And what I ended up having to do was I would pull the throttles all the way back to idle, pull the speed lever or the speed brake lever out, deploy the speed levers, put it back down, and then re-engage the auto throttle. This was actually a bug that Working Title was able to adjust. So they fixed a flight model issue where phantom thrust was being generated, resulting in overspeed even with the throttles at flight idle. So really stoked. Adjusted flight model to provide more stability and accurate performance at high altitude. So again, getting closer to the real thing. Aircraft should now have more accurate, lower pitch angles during approach per pilot feedback. So the Longitude sort of doesn't really flare when it comes down to it. You should be bringing, I think that the flare is very minimum, like 2.5 degrees, if even that. That's not something that typically I have been able to pull off very effectively. And so what we're seeing now is we should see a lower pitch angle while maintaining the approach speeds accordingly. If I read that correct and interpreting that correct, I guess we'll find out when I fly it, because I'm absolutely going to. And then takeoff and landing performance calculations now work correctly with negative runway elevation. So you can now get the correct performance information after entering in the slope of the runway, or negative, runway elevations, meaning runways that are below sea level. Gosh, who would want to do that? And then on the MFD, fixed a bug where the EIS thrust reverser indications were incorrectly displayed when only the right thrust reverser was deployed, adjusted the elevator trim limits in line with real limits, and then autopilot and auto throttle adjustments. The auto throttle will now limit its range to prevent causing speed brake auto stow when the speed brakes are extended, unless takeoff mode is activated. So what that means is that if you have the speed brakes extended, so you are intentionally trying to slow the aircraft down, as long as you are not in the takeoff mode, the auto throttle will no longer increase to the point where the auto stow is engaged. So basically what that means is you have your speed brakes up, and what auto stow how it works is if you accelerate the engines to a limit that is no longer safe for the speed brakes to be deployed, the speed brakes will automatically be stowed. They'll be retracted. Okay. And what was happening is that if you had auto throttle enabled, but let's say you're on the descent and you're descending a bit too fast, you need to pull some of that, lift off the wings or slow the aircraft down, you can pull the speed brakes up. Well, then what would happen is the auto throttle would detect that the speed is being reduced too rapidly, so the auto throttle would come forward, causing the auto stow to trigger, and therefore, whether you had the speed brake handle out or not, the speed brakes would once again retract and you'd start accelerating again. So that has been fixed. So now when the speed brake lever is stowed, the auto throttle cannot go far enough to the point where it would cause the auto stow to engage. So unless, once again, you are in the takeoff roll. And let's see here, fixed a bug where changing the FMS changing the speed from FMS to manual speed mode would sometimes reset the selected speed target to an arbitrary value. Maybe it's just a value that it picks. So pretty awesome stuff here. And then system and controls fixed a bug where spoiler access was not commanding full spoiler extension range, added no standby data cast messages when the standby instrument's battery bus is not powered. God, this is so cool. PS button on CAS, message is now correct, and severity level while on the ground. Engine shutdown left and right now properly appears on the power up. APU will now run the APU fire test and then display APU digits on the EIS when turned to the on position. And the PFD fixed an issue where sometimes the PFD airspeed indicator over speed range, or the barber pole as it's called, was incorrectly displayed or failed to display. I love the work they're doing with the Longitude. The Longitude is such a neat aircraft, and it's so fast and it climbs like a freaking rocket. It's just an absolute sportster to fly. And I've been so dependent on the Longitude improvement mod, which I'm so grateful that it was ever even developed. But it's really nice seeing all of these amazing features now coming directly to the simulator without the need of any kind of update or improvement mod, in addition to just having the aircraft itself. They're really turning this thing upside down, man. I'm super stoked. When Working Title first made the CJ4, I had always hoped that they would take over the Longitude as well, because I felt like they were, as far as size and capability, I felt like they were pretty respective to each other, and was really hoping that that Working Title would basically do what they did with the CJ4 and just turn it upside down and put it back together. And it sounds like they're heading in that direction, man. So keep your fingers crossed, because they're doing some fantastic work with this. Please keep in mind, guys, with all of these additions, if you are using the AAU1 update, you got a couple things to worry about if you're on the beta version of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Whenever you switch to the beta version, you run into a possibility of critical failures to the simulator. Okay, so if you guys are going to switch, please keep that in mind. You absolutely could find yourself having to completely reinstall the sim, and then leaving the beta. And then on the other side of that is, make sure that if you're using things like the TBM 930 improvement mod, Longitude improvement mod, anything else like that, or any other avionics mods that are in conjunction with the aforementioned mods in this, or avionics in this video, G3000, 5000 suite, etc. Make sure you remove those before you switch to the AAU1 update, because they will absolutely cause problems. For example, the TBM 930 improvement mod on the beta absolutely is a terrible thing. You do not want to use that with the TBM any further. But performance of the aircrafts are very similar to that of the improvement mods. So again, it's really becoming no longer a bummer as much as now it's becoming just non-necessity. So which is really sad, because I mean, Mixed Mugs really did keep that thing going, and then Luca doing such a great job of keeping it alive while Mixed Mugs was out of touch, if you will. But anyway, guys, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Hope you found some valuable information. Again, these current updates that I mentioned are only available in Microsoft Flight Simulator Beta. There is a risk, but if you're willing to dive in with me, I can tell you right now it's going to be a lot of fun. I really am enjoying the beta. I haven't experienced any significant issues. However, there are people who have and that have commented in the video, so please be careful. As always, guys, stay safe and healthy, and I will see you in the next one.